The chamber was silent as Ambassador Kevin Martinez stood before the 7 seats of the Galactic Council. He had been standing there for 3 hours now, waiting for them to finish their private deliberations. The vote should have been simple. Humanity had earned the right to expand into the Outer Rim territories. They had fought alongside Council forces against pirates. They had shared their technology freely. They had proven themselves time and again. The doors finally opened. Council Speaker Theron emerged first, his 4 eyes fixed on some point above Kevin's head. The other 6 council members followed, taking their elevated seats in the ancient chamber. Kevin had been here 100 times before, but today something felt different. The air was thick with tension. "Ambassador Martinez," Theron began, his translator rendering his words into perfect English. "The Council has reached its decision regarding the Outer Rim expansion rights." Kevin straightened his uniform. He had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. Earth needed those territories. 20 billion humans lived in cramped colonies, waiting for room to grow. The Outer Rim was unclaimed space, far from any Council world. It should have been an easy approval. "The Council has voted," Theron continued, "to grant the Outer Rim territories to the Vraxian Collective." Kevin felt his stomach drop. The Vraxians already controlled 1/3 of the galaxy. They didn't need more space. This made no sense. "Furthermore," Theron said, his voice taking on a dismissive tone, "the Council has decided that humanity's expansion must be restricted. Your species will be limited to your current 12 colonies for the next 100 years. Around the chamber, the other Council members nodded in agreement. Kevin saw no sympathy in any of their faces. The Kellian representative, who had shared drinks with him just last week, wouldn't meet his eyes. "This is for your own good," Theron added. "Your species is young. You have been spacefaring for only 2 centuries. You need guidance. You need supervision. The elder races know what is best for galactic stability." Kevin stood perfectly still. His hands didn't shake. His face showed nothing. Years of diplomatic training had prepared him for moments like this, but nothing had prepared him for this level of betrayal. "The Council expects your acknowledgement of this verdict," Theron said, leaning back in his seat, as if the matter was already settled. Kevin took a slow breath. He thought about Earth. He thought about the colonies struggling to feed their populations. He thought about the 20 years he had spent building relationships with these species, believing they were allies. He thought about every compromise, every concession, every time humanity had bent over backward to prove they were worthy of respect. "Humanity acknowledges this verdict," Kevin said quietly. His voice carried clearly through the chamber. "We will respond accordingly." He turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, he heard Theron's voice. "Ambassador, you must complete the traditional diplomatic closing." Kevin kept walking. He didn't look back. He didn't bow. He didn't offer the ritual words of gratitude. He simply left. The door sealed behind him, and Kevin allowed himself one moment of anger. His hands clenched into fists. Then he took out his communicator and sent a single encrypted message to Earth. The response came back in seconds. 2 words. "Execute protocol." 7. Kevin began walking faster. He had a ship to catch. Within the hour, every human diplomat in the galaxy received the same message. On the Vraxian homeworld, Ambassador Lisa Chen was meeting with their trade minister when her communicator buzzed. She glanced at it, then stood up in the middle of the minister's sentence. "I apologize," Lisa said, gathering her documents. "But this meeting is over. All meetings are over." The Vraxian minister blinked in confusion. "I don't understand." "We were discussing the new trade agreements." Lisa paused at the door. She had lived on this world for 5 years. She had learned their language, their customs, their history. She had genuinely liked many of them. But that was before today. "We came to you with open hands," Lisa said softly. "You chose to see fists. Now you will learn the difference." She left the minister sitting alone in the conference room. The same scene played out across hundreds of worlds. Human diplomats withdrew without explanation. They didn't argue. They didn't plead. They simply left. Trade ministers found their human counterparts gone. Military liaisons discovered empty offices. Research partners arrived at labs to find equipment packed, and humans departed. On Concordia Prime, the neutral station that hosted the council chambers, Kevin Martinez boarded his ship. Captain Danny Foster was already warming up the engines. "Orders confirmed?" Danny asked. "Confirmed," Kevin replied. "We're going home, all of us." "What about the trade ships?" "Recall them all. Every human vessel returns to human space, immediately." Danny nodded and began issuing commands. Within hours, the station's traffic control was flooded with departure requests. Every human ship, from massive cargo haulers to small personal craft, was leaving at once. The council noticed. Of course they noticed. Emergency meetings were called. Messages were sent to human vessels, demanding explanations. Every message went unanswered. By the end of the day, there wasn't a single human diplomat left in council space. Trade ships were already crossing back into human territory. Communication channels that had been active for decades went silent. In the council chamber, Speaker Theron reviewed the reports with growing irritation. "They're throwing a tantrum," he said to the other council members. "This is exactly why they need supervision. They act like children." The Kellyan representative, Ambassador Katie Sullivan, looked troubled. "Should we not reconsider? The humans have been valuable allies. Allies who know their place," the Vraxian representative said. "They forget that we are the elder races. We have maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years. They have been in space for barely 2 centuries. Theron nodded. "Send messages to Earth, formal requests for explanation. They will calm down in a few weeks and come back to negotiate. They always do. They need us more than we need them." But the messages to Earth received no response. Every attempt at communication hit a wall of silence. Days passed. Then weeks. Human space remained completely closed. No ships came out. No signals were sent. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from the galaxy. The Council sent envoy ships to the border of human territory. They were met by automated defense platforms that had not been there before. The platforms broadcast a simple message in every known language: "Human space is now closed. Any unauthorized entry will be considered an act of war." The envoy ships returned to Council space with troubling reports. The borders were now heavily fortified. The defenses were sophisticated, far beyond what humans had shown before. And most troubling of all, there were no humans to negotiate with. Only machines, delivering cold warnings. In his office on Earth, Kevin Martinez watched the reports from the border. His assistant entered with a datapad. "The Council is getting nervous," she said. "Their media is full of speculation. Some of their member species are asking questions about the decision." Kevin nodded. "Good. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Sir, do you think they'll try to force their way in?" Kevin looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere up there, in the darkness of space, the galaxy was beginning to realize that humanity was not coming back. That the door had closed, that patience had limits. "They will," Kevin said quietly. "They always do. They don't believe in consequences until consequences arrive." His assistant hesitated. "Are we ready for that?" Kevin thought about the ships being built in secret. The weapons that had never been shared. The plans that had been prepared for exactly this moment. Humanity had hoped for peace, but they had always known that hope was not a strategy. "We're ready," Kevin said. "The question is, are they?" 2 months had passed since humanity closed its borders. The Galactic Council had expected anger, negotiations, maybe even threats. What they got was silence. Complete, total silence. And that silence was starting to hurt. The first signs appeared in the trade networks. Routes that human ships had protected for decades were now vulnerable. Pirate attacks increased by 40% in the first month alone. Merchant vessels from Council species found themselves without the human escorts they had relied on. On the industrial world of Krell, factory managers stared at production lines that had ground to a halt. The advanced manufacturing techniques that humans had shared freely were complex. They required regular updates, regular maintenance consultations. Those consultations had stopped. The Krell had the basic knowledge, but not the deep understanding. Production dropped by 30%. In medical centers across Council space, doctors faced similar problems. Human medical advances had revolutionized treatment for dozens of diseases. But the research updates had stopped coming. New medicines were no longer being shared. The doctors had what they had, but progress had frozen. Council Speaker Theron dismissed these concerns in public. In private, he was less confident. "They'll come back," he told the other council members during an emergency session. "They need galactic trade as much as anyone." "Do they?" asked Ambassador Katie Sullivan, the Kellyan representative. She had voted against the original decision to restrict humanity. "We assumed they needed us because they participated in our systems. But they never needed to participate. They chose to." The Vraxian representative waved a dismissive hand. "Sentiment. They are a minor species trying to seem important. This tantrum proves our decision was correct." But not everyone was convinced. 3 council species had begun sending private messages to the border, asking for dialogue. Every message went unanswered. The automated platforms simply repeated their warning. Human space is closed. Then the council made a decision that would change everything. They sent military vessels to test humanity's resolve. Not a full fleet, just 3 Vraxian warships under the command of their decorated hero, Admiral Chris Bennett. The mission was simple: cross into human space, demonstrate that the council would not be ignored, then return. The 3 ships approached the border near the human colony of New Perth. They crossed the boundary that the automated platforms had marked. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. The Vraxian crews began to relax. Perhaps the humans had been bluffing after all. Then every system on all 3 ships died at once. Engines, weapons, life support, communications. Everything went dark in an instant. The ships drifted in space, completely powerless. The crews scrambled in emergency lighting, trying to understand what had happened. There had been no attack, no visible weapon. Their ships had simply stopped working. Admiral Bennett activated his emergency suit and tried to make sense of the situation. Through the viewports, he saw something approaching. Human ships. But not the designs he recognized from Council space. These were sleek, predatory-looking vessels that moved with disturbing grace. The human ships surrounded the disabled Vraxian vessels. Magnetic clamps attached. Boarding tubes extended. Bennett expected armed soldiers. Maybe execution. What he got was medical teams and engineers. Captain Danny Foster led the human response team onto Bennett's ship. He found the Admiral floating in the command center, watching his crew being helped by humans in rescue gear. "You crossed the border," Danny said simply. "You were warned. You attacked us without provocation," Bennett replied, his pride wounded more than his body. "No," Danny corrected him. "We disabled your ships. If we wanted to attack you, you would already be dead. This is the difference. This is your only warning." The human teams worked quickly. They provided emergency supplies, transferred the Vraxian crews to temporary habitats, and then towed the dead warships back across the border. Within 6 hours, every Vraxian was safely back in Council space. Their ships were left just outside human territory. Still completely disabled, the Vraxians sent recovery teams. It took them 3 days to get the ships powered up again. When their engineers examined the vessels, they found nothing physically wrong. No damage, no missing parts. Whatever the humans had done, it had been precise and temporary. A demonstration. Bennett was debriefed by Council intelligence for 2 days. His report was troubling. "They have weapons we've never seen," he told the Council. "They disabled 3 military vessels in seconds without any visible attack. No energy signatures, no missile launches, nothing. Our sensors detected nothing until our systems were already dead." "What do you recommend?" Theron asked. Bennett was quiet for a moment. He had fought in 4 major conflicts. He had earned every medal his species could award. He was not a man who frightened easily. "I recommend we stop pushing," he said finally. "Whatever the humans have been hiding, it's far beyond what we expected." The council ignored his recommendation. Instead, they increased surveillance on the human border. They sent probe drones to watch and gather intelligence. Every drone that crossed into human space was disabled and returned, not destroyed, disabled and sent back. The message was clear. We can destroy you, but we choose not to. Yet, meanwhile, human activity in the galaxy had not stopped entirely. It had simply changed. Human ships began appearing near Council infrastructure, not near military bases or homeworlds, but near critical support systems. Mining stations that supplied raw materials, communications, relays that connected Council worlds, trade hubs that kept the economy flowing. The human ships didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They just positioned themselves and waited. The implication was obvious. You can come to our borders with military force, but we can appear anywhere in your territory. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison reviewed the tactical displays in the Defense Command Center. Every human ship in the galaxy was now accounted for. Every position was deliberate. Years of preparation were paying off. They still don't understand, he said to his second-in-command, Captain Amy Rodriguez. Do you think they will? Amy asked. Eventually. The question is whether they'll understand before or after they do something truly stupid. In Council space, former allies of humanity were trying to make sense of the situation. Ambassador Michelle Torres of the Kellyan Diplomatic Corps had worked with humans for 15 years. She knew them better than most council members. She tried to warn the others. You're treating this like a negotiation tactic, she told Theron during a private meeting. It's not. You broke something. You can't unbroke it by waiting them out. They need us, Theron insisted. No, Michelle replied. They needed respect. They needed to be treated as equals. They participated in council systems because they thought we were building something together. You showed them that we saw them as subjects, not partners. They won't forget that. Then what do you suggest? Genuine apology, reversal of the expansion restrictions, real changes to how the council treats younger species. Theron's expression hardened. The council does not apologize. We have maintained galactic peace for 3,000 years. We do not change our policies because one species throws a tantrum. Quote, Michelle stood up. Then you should prepare for war. Because that's where this ends. She left before he could respond. 3 days later, she submitted her resignation from the Council Diplomatic Service. She was not the only one. Across Council space, diplomats and analysts who had worked with humans began stepping down. They had seen what the Council could not. They had seen the warning signs. In the border regions, more incidents occurred. A Council science vessel wandered too close to human space while studying an asteroid field. It was disabled. Its crew rescued and returned. And the ship sent back. A trade convoy took a shortcut through what used to be neutral space but was now claimed by humanity. Same result. Disabled, rescued, returned. Every incident was handled with precise efficiency. No one was killed. No one was harmed beyond minor injuries from the sudden power loss. But the message grew clearer with each event. Humanity could reach out and touch Council assets whenever they wanted. The Council's intelligence agencies worked desperately to understand what had changed. They analyzed every interaction with humans over the past 50 years. They searched for clues about military capabilities. What they found was troubling. Every human ship that had operated in Council space had been outdated. Not old, but deliberately using older technology. Every military specification that humans had shared had been incomplete. Every joint exercise had shown human ships to be capable, but not exceptional. It had all been theater. A careful performance to hide true capabilities. Dr. Nicole Hart, former science liaison to the Council, gave an interview to an independent news network. She was no longer bound by diplomatic protocols. We told them, she said on camera. We shared our history. We showed them what happens on Earth when people in power dismiss those they see as weaker. We have 1,000 years of wars that started because someone underestimated their opponent. We warned them that we understood strength, that we came in peace but were not helpless. They heard the words, but never believed them. The interview spread through council space. Public opinion began to shift, especially among younger species who had benefited from human cooperation. Protests emerged on several worlds, demanding the council reverse its decision, but the council's pride would not bend. Theron and the Vraxian leadership saw the human response as an insult that demanded correction. They began planning a show of force, a fleet large enough to make humanity see reason, large enough to remind them who really controlled the galaxy. In the border regions, human sensors detected the council fleet beginning to assemble. The information was relayed to Earth within seconds. Admiral Morrison studied the reports and made his decision. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. "It's time to show them what they're really dealing with." Human ships that had been positioned near Council infrastructure began moving, not toward the assembling fleet, but to new positions around critical systems. More ships emerged from human space, taking up stations throughout the galaxy. The network was expanding. The message was clear. "You're building a fleet to threaten our home. We're already positioned to threaten everything you have." The council chamber was packed for the emergency session. Representatives from all 7 elder species sat in their designated seats, but today they were joined by observers from 24 younger species. The gallery was full. The decision being made would affect the entire galaxy. Council Speaker Theron stood at the central podium, his 4 eyes scanning the assembled delegates. 3 months of human silence had created chaos. Trade networks were struggling. Technology updates had stopped. And now human ships were positioned near critical infrastructure throughout Council space. A silent threat that no one could ignore. "The Council has deliberated for weeks," Theron announced. "We have attempted peaceful contact with humanity. Every attempt has been refused. They have withdrawn from civilized discourse. They have positioned military assets near our vital systems. This cannot stand." Ambassador Katie Sullivan of the Kellyan delegation raised her hand. "Speaker, perhaps we should reconsider our original decision. The expansion restrictions were harsh. An apology and reversal might open dialogue." The Vraxian representative stood up sharply. "The Council does not apologize to children. Humanity must learn their place. They must learn that threats and tantrums will not change galactic order." Theron nodded in agreement. "The Council proposes to form a peacekeeping fleet. 300 ships from all member species. The stated mission is to restore diplomatic contact and ensure galactic stability. The real mission is intimidation," Katie said quietly. "The real mission is peace," Theron corrected her. "We will show humanity that their defiance has limits. We will remind them that the Council has maintained order for 3,000 years. One young species will not dictate terms to the galaxy." The vote was called. Despite protests from several younger species, the motion passed. The Council would assemble the largest military fleet in recorded galactic history. They would position it at the border of human space. They would give humanity a final chance to negotiate. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison received the intelligence reports with grim satisfaction. He had predicted this exact response. Humans had studied Council psychology for decades. They knew how pride would override wisdom. "They're gathering at Staging Point Gamma," Captain Amy Rodriguez reported. "Current count is 215 ships, with more arriving daily. They'll have 300 within 2 weeks, Jake nodded. "And our assets? Positioned and ready. Every critical system in Council space is covered. Mining stations, communications relays, trade hubs. We can cripple their infrastructure in hours if needed. Make sure they know it. I want our ships visible. No hiding, no subtlety. They need to understand what they're risking." Human vessels throughout the galaxy adjusted their positions, making themselves obvious to Council sensors. A single human ship appeared near the Council's primary communications relay, the massive station that connected hundreds of worlds. The ship made no threats. It simply waited there, visible and ominous. Similar scenes played out across Council territory. Human ships appeared near power generation facilities, near automated mining operations, near the trade stations that kept the galactic economy functioning. Each ship was alone. Each ship was outnumbered by nearby Council vessels. But the implication was clear. If you come to our home in force, we will come to yours. The Council's military command tried to calculate human strength. They analyzed every sighting, every sensor reading. What they found was confusing. The human ships all appeared to be the same class, mass-produced vessels of identical design that suggested industrial capacity beyond what anyone had imagined. But how many ships did humanity have? Where were they being built? The calculations didn't make sense. In the Kellyan home system, Ambassador Michelle Torres watched the crisis unfold with growing dread. She had resigned from the Council diplomatic service, but her contacts remained active. She knew things that terrified her. She decided to take one last action. Consequences be damned. She sent an unauthorized message to the human border, using old encryption codes from her time working with humanity. She didn't know if anyone would respond. She didn't know if the codes still worked, but she had to try. This is Michelle Torres, former Council liaison. I'm sending this on personal authority, not Council orders. Please, talk to someone. This is spiraling toward war. The Council fleet is assembling. They think they can intimidate you. I know better. I know you. Please, help me stop this. The response came 12 hours later. A single line of text. The time for talk ended 3 months ago. But we appreciate the gesture. Save your people, Michelle. Get them away from the border. Michelle stared at the message for a long time. Then she began making calls to every Kellyan she knew in the border regions. Leave, she told them. Leave now. Don't ask why. Just trust me. At the Council fleet staging point, ships continued to arrive. The assembly was impressive. Vraxian dreadnoughts, massive and powerful. Kellyan cruisers, fast and well-armed. Ships from all 7 elder species, representing 3,000 years of military tradition. Admiral Chris Bennett had been given command of the fleet, despite his earlier warnings about human capabilities. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the fleet grow. 300 ships. The largest military force in galactic history. It should have made him feel confident. Instead, he felt uneasy. He remembered his disabled ship, drifting helplessly while human rescue teams boarded. He remembered the precision, the efficiency, the complete control humanity had demonstrated. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting increased human activity. Multiple ships emerging from their territory. How many? Bennett asked. Current count is 47. No. Wait. 73. Sir. They keep appearing. They're coming from multiple vectors. Bennett moved to the tactical display. What he saw made his blood run cold. Human ships were emerging from their space in groups, taking up positions that mirrored the Council fleet's formation. For every Council vessel, there seemed to be a human ship positioning itself opposite. Current count? He asked quietly. 268. No, 291. Sir, they're still coming. The Council fleet had 300 ships. The humans were matching them, ship for ship. But these weren't the outdated vessels that had operated in Council space. These were sleek, identical warships that moved with disturbing coordination. Where had they come from? How had humanity built so many ships in secret? Back on Earth, Commander Brandon Lee directed the fleet deployment from the Human Defense Headquarters. He had trained his entire career for this moment. Every captain knew their position. Every ship knew its role. The plan had been rehearsed 1,000 times. Fleet positioning complete, he reported to Admiral Morrison. We have numerical parity with the Council force. Jake studied the display. Do they understand yet? Their communications are panicked. They're trying to figure out where all our ships came from. Some of their analysts are suggesting we emptied every colony, left ourselves defenseless. Jake smiled slightly. Let them think that. They'll learn the truth soon enough. In the Council chamber, emergency reports were flooding in. The Council members gathered around a holographic display showing both fleets. The human force was massive, Far beyond what anyone had predicted, panic began to set in. Where did they get those ships? The Vraxian representative demanded. We've monitored their shipyards. We've tracked their production. This is impossible. Quote, Katie Sullivan spoke up, her voice cutting through the chaos. Or maybe you've been watching the wrong shipyards. Maybe everything they showed you was theater. Maybe they've been preparing for this day since they first joined the council. I'm Slime. Weave and wine. That would require decades of deception, Theron said. Yes. Katie agreed. Decades of knowing they couldn't trust you. Decades of preparing for the day you would betray them. Apparently, they know you better than you know yourselves. The council sent a message to Admiral Bennett. Hold position. Do not engage. We need time to assess. But the situation was about to get worse. In council space, the human ships near critical infrastructure began broadcasting. Not threats, information. They started releasing data, years of recorded conversations, and backroom deals. They revealed the corruption behind the Outer Rim decision. They showed how the Vraxians had bribed council members. They exposed the contempt with which the council discussed younger species in private. The broadcasts spread through the galaxy in hours. Public opinion turned violently against the council. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. 3 younger species formally demanded council reform. 2 more withdrew their ships from the peacekeeping fleet. In the Kellian government chambers, a vote was called. The result was decisive. The Kellian delegation would withdraw from the council fleet and position themselves as neutral mediators. Ambassador Katie Sullivan was reinstated and given emergency authority to negotiate. She sent a message to both fleets. This ends now. No more escalation, no more threats. We will find a way forward. The council response was immediate and furious. The Kellians are in violation of council authority. Their vessels will be seized. But before council ships could move, the Kellian vessels repositioned themselves between the 2 main fleets. They were declaring neutrality, placing themselves as a buffer between humanity and the council. Within 6 hours, 3 more species followed the Kellian example. Their ships withdrew from the council fleet and positioned themselves in neutral space. The council fleet had shrunk from 300 ships to 210. The human fleet had not moved. They simply waited. On his flagship, Admiral Bennett received orders from the council. Advance into human space. Show them we will not be intimidated. Bennett looked at his tactical officer. How many human ships are we detecting now? 340, sir. And we're still picking up new contacts. They outnumber us, and they keep growing. Bennett made a decision that would define his career. He sent a message back to the council. Negative. I will not advance. I will not lead this fleet to destruction based on pride. If you want this war, find another admiral. The council's response was to relieve him of command and appoint a Vraxian hardliner in his place. Admiral Chris Bennett left the flagship on a shuttle, heading back to council space. As he departed, he sent one last message to his former crew. Whatever happens next, remember this. Pride is not worth dying for. The council has forgotten that lesson. Don't let them make you forget it too. The new fleet commander immediately ordered an advance toward human territory. But before the ships could move, something appeared on every sensor in both fleets. More human ships. Hundreds of them, thousands of them. They emerged from multiple directions, surrounding the council fleet. The tactical displays lit up with contact after contact. The human force wasn't 300 ships. It wasn't even 1,000. It was an armada beyond counting, ships stretching across space in every direction. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison watched the council fleet realize their situation. He picked up his communicator and sent a message to the fleet commander. You wanted to see our strength. Now you see it. Every ship in this fleet is identical because we built them all in the last 10 years. Mass production on a scale your galaxy has never imagined. We didn't show you everything because we learned from Earth's history. Never show all your cards until the game is over. The game is over. Stand down. The council fleet sat in space, surrounded by human vessels. The tactical displays showed a situation that should have been impossible. The humans outnumbered them 5-1, maybe 10-1. The sensors couldn't get an accurate count because human ships kept appearing from new directions, emerging from jump points that the Council didn't even know existed. The new fleet commander, a Vraxian admiral named Kovath, stared at his screens in disbelief. He had been ordered to intimidate humanity back to the negotiating table. Instead, he was staring at the largest military force he had ever seen, and it belonged to the species the Council had dismissed as children. Kovath composed himself and broadcast a message on all frequencies. Human fleet. This is Admiral Kovath of the Galactic Council Peacekeeping Force. The Council demands that you stand down and withdraw your vessels. You have 48 hours to reopen diplomatic channels and accept Council arbitration, or face the consequences. The response came not in words, but in action. Every human ship in the galaxy, from the massive fleet surrounding the Council to the lone vessels positioned near critical infrastructure, adjusted their positions slightly. It was a small movement, but the meaning was clear. They were preparing for combat. Not retreating. Not negotiating. Preparing. On Earth, Admiral Jake Morrison listened to Kovath's ultimatum and shook his head. They still don't understand. Amy, send the standing orders to all ships. At the 47-hour mark, we respond. Captain Amy Rodriguez nodded. The scheduled response, sir? Exactly as planned. Let them have their 48 hours to think. Then they learn what we've been trying to teach them for 3 months. The galaxy held its breath. News networks broadcast constant coverage. Civilian populations evacuated from border regions. Ships that could move away from the crisis did so. Everyone waited to see if the Council and humanity would actually go to war. In the Council chambers, emergency sessions ran around the clock. The 7 elder species were divided. The Vraxians and their allies demanded strength, insisting that backing down would destroy Council authority forever. The other species, seeing the size of the human fleet, argued for immediate negotiations. Speaker Theron found himself losing control. The unity that had held the Council together for 3,000 years was fracturing. Younger species were openly questioning Council decisions. Some were demanding representation in Council votes. Others were suggesting the entire system needed reform. This is exactly what the humans wanted, Theron told his inner circle. They have turned the galaxy against us. They have made us look weak. We are weak. One of his advisors replied quietly. We just didn't know it until now. At the 47-hour mark, humanity responded. Not with words. With demonstration. Captain Tyler Morgan commanded the human squadron positioned near the Council's primary communications relay. The massive station was the size of a small moon, processing quadrillions of messages per second, connecting hundreds of Council worlds. It was vital. It was irreplaceable. And it was within range of Tyler's weapons. He sent a message to the station. Evacuate. You have 10 minutes. The station's administrator thought it was a bluff. 9 minutes later, when the evacuation was only half complete, Tyler fired. Not at the station, at a dead satellite drifting 300 kilometers away. The satellite ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was vapor and debris. That was a warning shot, Tyler broadcast. You have 1 minute to complete evacuation. The remaining station personnel fled in emergency pods. Once they were clear, Tyler's squadron moved into position around the station. They didn't attack it. They didn't need to. The message was sent. We can destroy this whenever we want. The same scene played out across Council space. Human ships near power generation facilities moved into attack positions. Human vessels near mining operations armed their weapons. At every critical system, the same message: we are here. We are capable. We are ready. In the Council chamber, panic became chaos. Reports flooded in from every direction. The humans weren't threatening. They were demonstrating, showing exactly what they could destroy, showing how easily they could do it. They've been planning this for years, Katie Sullivan said, her voice cutting through the noise. Every position is perfect. Every target is critical. They mapped our entire infrastructure, and positioned forces to attack every weak point. This isn't improvisation, this is strategy. The Vraxian representative slammed his appendage on the table. Then we fight. We show them that the Council cannot be threatened. With what? Katie demanded. Our fleet is surrounded. Our infrastructure is hostage. We have nothing to fight with except pride, and pride won't win this war. But pride was exactly what drove the Council's next decision. A single Council ship, commanded by an ambitious Vraxian captain named Drevok, decided to act. He saw the human fleet surrounding them as a challenge to his honor. He saw the waiting as weakness. Against direct orders, he advanced his ship toward human territory. Captain Eric Stone, commanding the lead human vessel in that sector, detected the movement immediately. He broadcast a warning. Council vessel, halt your advance. You are entering restricted space. This is your final warning. Drevok ignored the warning. His ship crossed the border into human territory. He thought the humans were bluffing. He thought their demonstrations were theater. He was wrong. Eric didn't hesitate. He had his orders. Any incursion into human space after the warnings would be met with force. His weapons locked on. He fired. The Vraxian ship exploded in 3 seconds. There was no disabling, no rescue, no mercy. The destruction was captured by dozens of sensors. The footage spread across the galaxy in minutes. A Council warship, crossing into human space despite warnings, ceased to exist in the time it takes to draw a breath. Eric broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was calm, almost sad. That vessel received the same warning as the others months ago. We gave you time. We gave you chances. The difference between mercy and justice is opportunity. We gave you months of opportunity. That time has passed. The Council fleet was frozen in shock. Admiral Kovath stared at the empty space where Drevok's ship had been. 200 crew members dead in 3 seconds. The humans hadn't disabled the ship. They had destroyed it. The game had changed. On Earth, Admiral Morrison received the report. Confirmed kill? He asked. Confirmed, sir. Captain Stone followed protocol. Warning issued. Warning ignored. Threat eliminated. Jake nodded slowly. It had to happen eventually. They had to learn that we're serious. Send a message to all ships. Rules of engagement remain unchanged. Warnings first, force second. But make no mistake, we will use force if needed. In the Council chambers, the response to the destroyed ship was swift and divided. The Vraxians demanded immediate retaliation. They wanted total war. Other species argued that Drevok had disobeyed orders, that he had crossed the border despite clear warnings. The chamber dissolved into shouting matches and accusations. Speaker Theron tried to restore order, but his authority was shattered. 3 more species withdrew their support from the Council's position. 2 species formally declared neutrality. The unified front that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years was falling apart. The Kellyan government made an emergency broadcast. Ambassador Katie Sullivan appeared on every news network in Council space. The Council's decision 3 months ago was wrong. The Outer Rim restriction was unjust. The treatment of humanity was disrespectful. This crisis is the Council's fault. We, the Kellyan people, formally apologize to humanity and call for immediate negotiations on equal terms. 3 other species followed with similar statements within hours. The younger species were abandoning the Council's position. Public opinion had turned completely. Protests filled the streets of Council worlds. Demonstrators demanded reform, demanded justice, demanded that their leaders stop the march toward war. But the Vraxian leadership and their remaining allies couldn't back down. To do so would be to admit they were wrong. To admit that a younger species had outmaneuvered them. To admit that their 3,000 years of authority meant nothing if they couldn't enforce their will. They sent a message to Admiral Kovath. Advance into human space. Engage their fleet. Destroy them. Kovath read the order 3 times. He thought about his crew. He thought about the human ships surrounding his fleet. He thought about Drevok's ship. vanishing in 3 seconds. He thought about his family back on the Vraxian homeworld. Then he thought about Admiral Chris Bennett, who had refused this same order and been relieved of command. Bennett had been right. This wasn't about military objectives. This was about pride. And Koveth was being ordered to sacrifice his entire fleet on the altar of Council pride. He sent back a simple message. Unable to comply. Request immediate relief of command. The response was swift. Denied. Advance or face court-martial. Koveth looked at his bridge crew. Young officers who trusted him to keep them alive. He thought about all the other ships in his fleet. Thousands of crew members waiting for his orders. He made his decision. All ships, he broadcast on fleet channels. This is Admiral Koveth. I am refusing orders to advance. Any ship that wishes to follow Council commands may do so. I will not stop you, but I will not lead you to death. We are outmaneuvered. We are outgunned. This battle cannot be won. It can only be died in. Silence filled the communication channels. Then, one by one, ship commanders responded. Standing with you. Admiral. Holding position. Refusing advancement orders. Not every ship agreed. 43 vessels, mostly Vraxian, broke formation and began advancing toward human territory. They accelerated. Weapons armed. Determined to prove Council strength, the human response was immediate and overwhelming. Those 43 ships never made it across the border. Human vessels intercepted them in neutral space. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, 43 Council ships drifted in space, disabled but intact. Their crews were alive, but helpless. Then human transport ships arrived. They attached to the disabled Council vessels and began evacuation procedures. Every Council crew member was transferred to human ships, given medical treatment, and placed in comfortable detention. Within hours, they were all safely off their vessels. Once the crews were evacuated, the human ships towed the disabled Council vessels back across the border and left them there. Empty hulks returned to Council space. The message was clear. We can disable you. We can destroy you. We can capture you. We choose which one happens. The choice is ours, not yours. In his detention cell on a human ship, one Vraxian officer asked his guard a question. Why didn't you just destroy us? Why? The human guard, a young woman named Kelly Rogers, looked at him with something like pity. Because we're not monsters. We're not conquerors. We just want you to leave us alone. Every death is a tragedy. We'll kill if we must, but we'd rather not. That's the difference between us. You came to prove your strength. We came to protect our home. The galaxy stood on the edge of total war. 2 fleets faced each other in space. One was the remnant of the Council's peacekeeping force, now reduced and demoralized. The other was humanity's revealed strength, thousands of ships in perfect formation, waiting. In the Council chambers, emergency meetings had continued for 3 days straight. The 7 elder species were no longer unified. The Kellians had withdrawn. 2 other species were calling for peace. The Vraxians and their remaining allies insisted on military action. Speaker Theron looked 10 years older than he had 3 months ago. We cannot back down, the Vraxian representative insisted. If we surrender to human demands, every species in the galaxy will question our authority. The Council will collapse. Katie Sullivan, back in the chamber as an observer rather than a member, spoke up. The Council is already collapsing. You collapsed it when you made a decision based on pride rather than justice. What you're really saying is that you'd rather fight a war than admit you were wrong. Do not lecture us on governance, the Vraxian representative snapped. Your species is barely 2 million years old. We have maintained galactic order for 3,000 years. And in 3 months, humanity has proven that your 3,000 years of experience mean nothing when facing an opponent you underestimated, Katie replied. How many more ships must be disabled? How many more crew members must be captured? How many must die before you accept reality? The debate raged on, but Katie knew it was pointless. The hardliners would never admit fault. They would push until something broke. She left the chamber and sent a message to Admiral Morrison on Earth. They won't negotiate. They're going to order one final attack. Prepare for the worst. At the border, Admiral Kovath maintained his position. Most of his fleet had refused to advance, standing with him in defiance of Council orders. But the Council had already begun organizing a new attack force from reserve ships and the vessels of species still loyal to the hardline position. Admiral Jake Morrison studied the intelligence reports. The Council was pulling together everything they had left. 200 ships. Drawn from reserve fleets and loyal species, they would arrive at the border in 48 hours. This would be the final test. He called a meeting of his senior commanders. Captain Danny Foster, Captain Amy Rodriguez, Commander Brandon Lee, and a dozen others gathered in the command center on Earth. They're coming with everything they have left, Jake told them. 200 ships. Most of them older vessels. Reserve forces. But they're coming. The question is how we respond. We could disable them all like the others, Amy suggested. Capture the crews, return the ships. Same as before. We could, Jake agreed. But at some point, they need to see our full strength. They need to understand not just that we can defend ourselves, but that attacking us is suicide. Otherwise, they'll just keep coming. Danny leaned forward. You want to let them see the full fleet. Not just the ships we've shown them, but everything, Jake nodded. The Council thinks we revealed our strength. They're wrong. We showed them a fraction. It's time they see what Earth has really built. The order went out to every human colony, every hidden shipyard, every secret facility. The reserves were being called up. Every ship humanity had built in 10 years of secret preparation would emerge. The galaxy would finally see what a species from a death world could accomplish when they put their minds to it. 72 hours later, the Council's final attack force arrived at the border. 200 ships, commanded by the last Vraxian admiral, willing to lead them. His name was Zorath, and he was determined to restore Council honor or die trying. He broadcast his message to the human fleet. Humans, you have defied the Council for the last time. You have attacked our ships. You have threatened our infrastructure. You have humiliated the elder species. This ends now. Stand down or be destroyed. The human response came from Admiral Morrison himself, broadcasting from his flagship which had just emerged from Earth's orbit. His voice was calm, measured, but with an edge of steel underneath. Admiral Zorath, you are making a mistake. We have disabled your ships when we could have destroyed them. We have captured your crews when we could have killed them. We have shown restraint when we could have shown vengeance. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. Do not mistake mercy for inability. Turn back now. This is your last chance. The Council does not take orders from humans, Zorath replied. We are the elder species. We are the keepers of galactic peace. You will submit, or you will be eliminated. Very well, Jake said quietly. Humanity gave you every opportunity for peace. Remember that when you explain this to your survivors, he signaled to his fleet commanders. All forces, emerge. Show them what they're really facing. Space itself seemed to tear open. Jump points activated by the thousands. From Earth, from Mars, from every human colony, from hidden bases throughout human territory, ships emerged. Not hundreds, not thousands, tens of thousands. A fleet so massive that it defied comprehension. Ships of every size, from small frigates to massive dreadnoughts. All of them identical in their mass-produced efficiency. All of them armed, all of them ready. The human fleet spread across space like a tide. They didn't surround the Council force. They didn't need to. They simply appeared, filling every sensor screen, overwhelming every tactical display. The sheer scale of it made the Council's attack force look like a training exercise. On Zorath's bridge, his tactical officer reported in a shaking voice. Sir, contact count is over 50,000. Still rising. Sir, we're outnumbered 250 to 1. This is impossible. Zorath stared at the display. His confidence evaporated. This wasn't a fleet. This was an armada beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. And it had been hidden in human space the entire time. Humanity hadn't shown their full strength. They had shown a tiny fraction. They had been holding back. Admiral Morrison's voice came over the communication channels again. "This is what your pride has purchased, Admiral Zorath. You wanted to see human strength. You demanded a show of force. Here it is. Every ship you see was built in the last 10 years. We built them while we pretended to be your friends. We built them while we shared our medicine and our technology. We built them while we hoped we would never need them. You made us need them." Danny Foster, commanding one of the lead squadrons, added his own message. "We didn't want this. We came to the stars looking for friends. We found politicians and bureaucrats who saw us as children to be managed. We tried to work with you. We tried to earn respect. You gave us restrictions and condescension. So we prepared. We prepared for the day you would betray us. That day came. This is the result." On Earth, Captain Eric Stone stood in the command center, watching the fleet displays. He spoke quietly to the officers around him. "This is why we trained. This is why we built. Not because we wanted war, but because we studied history. Our history. Earth's history. We know what happens to those who trust too much, who hope too hard, who believe that others will treat them fairly. We learned that lesson in blood over thousands of years. We tried to teach it to the Council. They wouldn't listen. Now they learn." In the Council chambers, the tactical feeds were being broadcast. The Council members watched in horror as the true scale of human military power was revealed. The younger species in the gallery began to murmur. This changed everything. This meant humanity wasn't just defending themselves. They were choosing to defend themselves. They could have conquered the galaxy if they wanted. They had the strength. They chose not to use it. Speaker Theron stood at his podium, looking at the displays. His 3,000 years of council tradition, his authority, his power, all of it meant nothing in the face of 50,000 human warships. For the first time in his long life, he understood true fear. Admiral Zorath knew he was beaten. His 200 ships couldn't fight, couldn't flee, couldn't do anything except wait for the humans to decide their fate. He opened a channel to Morrison. "Admiral, I surrender. My fleet surrenders. Please, don't destroy us." Morrison's response was not what he expected. "We won't. We never wanted to. All you had to do was treat us with respect. All you had to do was honor your agreements. All you had to do was act like the wise elder species you claim to be. You chose pride. You chose dismissal. You chose this moment." He paused, then continued. "Your ships will be escorted back to Council space. Your crews will be unharmed. But understand this, Admiral. This is the last time we show mercy. This is the last time we choose restraint. If the Council comes for us again, if any Council ships cross our borders again, we will not disable them. We will not capture them. We will destroy them. The age of second chances is over." Human ships moved in around Zorath's fleet, not threatening but clearly in control. The Council vessels were escorted back across the border, then released. Every ship intact. Every crew alive. One final demonstration that humanity could have destroyed them but chose not to. In human space, the massive fleet began to disperse. Ships returned to their bases, their colonies, their positions, but everyone knew they could be recalled in hours. The secret was out. Humanity had the strength to fight the entire galaxy. They chose not to. That choice made them more dangerous than any conqueror. On Earth, Admiral Morrison received a communication request from an unexpected source. Michelle Torres, the Kellyan ambassador who had resigned from the Council, was asking to speak with him. "Admiral," she said when the connection was made, "I want to apologize. On behalf of every species that stood by while the Council mistreated humanity. We should have spoken up. We should have demanded better. We were cowards." Jake's expression softened slightly. "You weren't cowards. You were trying to maintain peace. We understand that. But peace built on inequality isn't real peace. It's just delayed conflict. What happens now? Michelle asked. Now, the Council has a choice, Jake replied. They can accept that humanity will not return to their system. They can accept that we will be independent, that our borders will be respected, that we will be treated as equals, or they can keep trying to force their will on us. If they choose the latter, next time we won't show restraint. And if they accept, then maybe, in time, we can rebuild trust. But it won't be the same. It can't be. They broke something. We can forgive, but we won't forget. We'll always remember that when it mattered, they chose pride over partnership. In the council chambers, the final vote was called. The question was simple. Did the council accept humanity's independence and sovereignty, or did they continue to try to enforce their will? The vote was not unanimous. The Vraxians and 2 other species voted to continue. But they were outvoted. 4 species, seeing the futility of continued conflict, voted to accept human terms. It was done. The Council's authority over humanity was ended. Speaker Theron read the result with a heavy heart. He prepared a formal statement to be broadcast across the galaxy. In it, he acknowledged humanity's right to self-determination. He withdrew all restrictions on human expansion. He proposed a new relationship, one of equals rather than elder and younger species. The statement was full of diplomatic language, carefully worded to avoid admitting fault. But everyone who read it understood the truth. The Council had lost. Humanity had won. Not through conquest, not through aggression, but through preparation and resolve. On Earth, Kevin Martinez read the Council's statement. He was back in the same office where he had received the original message 3 months ago. The message that started everything. He looked at his assistant, the same one who had asked if humanity was ready. "Is it over?" she asked. "For now," Kevin replied. "They'll test us again someday. They'll push the boundaries, see if we're still strong. It's what empires do. But they'll think twice now. They'll remember what happened when they underestimated us. Was it worth it? 3 months of crisis? The risk of war?" Kevin thought about that. "We didn't want this. We wanted partnership. But they forced us to choose between submission and independence. We chose independence. That's always worth it." In the border regions, the fleets began to withdraw. Human ships returned to human space. Council ships returned to council territory. The crisis was ending. But the galaxy was changed. The old order was broken. What would replace it? No one knew. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on his flagship, watching the last of the council ships disappear from his sensors. He thought about his crew. About all the crews throughout the human fleet. They had been ready to fight, ready to die if needed, but they hadn't needed to. The show of force had been enough. His second officer, a young captain named Brendan Hall, approached him. "Sir, orders are to return to Earth." "Are we done?" Jake looked out at the stars. "We're never done. There will always be another crisis, another threat. But for now, yes, we're done. We proved our point. We stood our ground. The galaxy learned that humans are not to be dismissed." He paused, then added quietly, "And maybe, just maybe, we taught them that strength and mercy can coexist. That the strong don't have to conquer. That power can be used to protect rather than dominate. If they learned that, then maybe this crisis was worth something." The ship turned toward Earth, toward home. Behind it, the rest of the human fleet followed. They had revealed their strength. They had faced down the council. They had won their independence, not through war, but through the credible threat of war. Not through aggression, but through prepared defense. In the council chambers, a junior delegate from a younger species whispered to his colleague, "What have we done?" And his colleague replied quietly, "We learned a lesson. We learned that dismissing those we see as inferior is dangerous. We learned that pride comes before the fall. We learned that sometimes the youngest voice in the room is the wisest. We just learned it the hard way." Across the galaxy, species watched and wondered. The order they had known was gone. Humanity had changed everything. Not by joining the council, but by refusing to be controlled by it. The future was uncertain. But one thing was clear: the age of unquestioned council authority was over. The age of humanity had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.